happy to continue the conversation and add to the dialogue, which we don't hear a lot of, right? Which is that sort of a cross-border conversation with similar interests. I think there's a lot of the conversation. I mean, we can save this as we go. I mean, this is a conversation that we don't have often enough. One where we have border communities speaking and identifying areas, synergies, areas of interest. Too much of it is looking for short-term fixes or looking for the proprietary, your own provincial interests, right? I mean, so San Diego, it may be something really centric towards tourism, which is great, but that's good, mostly for those American tourists, and that's not necessarily something more holistic, something larger, right? And I think that's kind of what we have begun a conversation on, which is that continued trade and recognizing the importance of relationships across the border. So that's personal, that's economic, and all the different effects of that, right? And making sure that human need and human interest is represented, especially even now in the lockdown, right? And we don't lose sight of that. That it's not fear. I understand kind of where things are with COVID and concerns about infections. And from what I see in the media, both sides of the border are blaming the other side for increases and infections. And I think the bigger goal is to be smart about prevention, best practices in the workplace, but you can still have the border open for essential services and more. And I again, it's just that the continuous need of us connecting across the border and those economic relationships and personal relationships are so important.
Yes, we're gonna jump right into that. But first, I would like to get you to introduce yourself to our friends and to our new audience for this new digital channel we're launching, where we're gonna keep on the spirit that particularly you have embedded in me of taking our message across not only borders but cultures. Since, for instance, even though Vince and I were friends for the last few years. He's based in San Diego, California. I'm based in Mexicali, in Baja California, Mexico. So we're pretty close neighbors in terms of political frontiers, barriers, and we're also pretty close geographically, but we're living worlds apart. And our own politicians and our own business people, they don't know what's going on the other side. They don't know. We neighbors, we don't know what's in the other's mind. So I would like to talk about how we met, how we became friends. But first, would you kindly introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Vince Vasquez. I'm the executive director of the Policycraft Institute, which is a public policy think tank based in Carlsbad, California, which is here in San Diego County, focusing on data analysis, the public policy process, and important just political discussions. And part of that is really important cross-border, cross-cultural conversations, and where that leads us not only to appreciate and enjoy just the complexities of the modern world and communities and people who live beyond our own geography, but it's also about building broader unity and conversation that leads to a reflection of the importance of economic relationships, the importance of good policies that help people and that help businesses. And I think that's part of where our conversation will continue to be a thread today.
That's fantastic. So, as I was saying, Vince and I go back a few years back, but most recently we had the chance, or we gave ourselves the chance to write our first op-ed piece together, which was published by the San Diego Union Tribune. And we were talking about a couple months back about negative effects, and we heard that it's gonna come from shutting down the border, not only shutting down businesses in our own cities, in our own counties, but also shutting down the border in this particular binational region that is Southern California with California and bits of Sonora in Mexico, which is pretty hurtful for businesses and for families alike, because you have people from the same family living in both sides of the border fence. And you have people that have businesses in both sides of the border fence. And you have people that are binational, and they can have either a job in California and a house in Baja California, or vice versa, or they can live in Mexico but go to work or go to school. Like, people cross the border every single day to take their kids to school. So it's a pretty complicated scenario. And we were trying to deal with that in a very, very brief manner. And I think things getting worse, because now we're hearing that there are some people that wanna close the border until December of this year.
Yeah, I did see that. I think it's extraordinary that we have government officials who think that the status quo right now at the border, which, by the way, Americans trying to cross back from Baja, I saw upwards of 6 hours, even folks who have like Sentry and Ready Lane, and it's just, there's a better approach, and you have to manage it. And it's not simply like literally shutting the border to non-essential visits, non-essential trips. You find a way to really make sure that, again, like human and economic need is met, that individuals can continue to, live and thrive. And we are seeing in real time the effects of the lockdown, the effects of a shuttered border. You see what that does to mental health, to relationships, to individual businesses, to workers. We are so interconnected, and I think it's profound and it's beautiful, because it's not something that is one generation. It's we're talking about multi-generation, centuries of a really beautiful relationship. And it's up to people, not their elected officials or government officials, to speak out and talk about what we need, what we want. I would say a 6 hour wait. And I've been waited at the border trying to cross back from San Isidro. My record is 5.5 hours. I've done that. I've been there. That is intolerable. We have tens of thousands of Americans, and I believe upwards of hundreds of thousands of Mexican nationals and residents in Baja who cross the border every day, right? And so we have to recognize that these aren't trips for folks who are trying to shop, and we have really important economic relationships, and we have no way of making sure those workers, people who are doctors or have the ability to get ahead of the line. They have to wait like everybody else. That's how queues work. That's how we're not managing this well. Nobody gave every doctor who has to cross the border a Sentry pass, right? That didn't happen during the pandemic. Everybody's in the same boat. and we're now in the 7th month of a lockdown. And it's just like, yeah, we need to find better solutions, and was proud to co-author with you very timely op-ed, focusing on let's focus on what we do know, that you can minimize the risk, you can minimize the spread, with proper sanitation and safety protocol, with improvements to the way of your workplace, and just being smart about it will help. There is no 100% solution to anything, but we are, especially now in a state where we have to figure out how we can simply just manage this, and to have a better approach that just recognizes, again, the importance of those relationships and that economic lifeline that goes both ways.
Yeah, I agree. I recall when we were talking, actually, we talked a lot during the previous weeks that we were writing the first piece together. We talked a lot. And I remember you asked me a lot of questions because there's so many ways that this could go wrong. And I guess you were pretty ahead of your time, in the sense that you were asking about what's going on with the dentists, what's going on with the physicians, maybe the drugstores, what's going on with the wine industry in Baja. And the interesting thing is that for many of your questions, not just you, but many people, many Californians come down to Baja, come down to Mexico to bring their revenue, bring their dollars, either as tourism or leisure or medical tourism, or just visiting family or buying things, maybe some shopping. And the immediate effects were kind of visible at that moment. But I remember you were trying to dig further down on what's gonna be the long-term consequences of that. And we're talking about family, and I don't want to make it too personal, but for instance, I was supposed to go to your wedding in San Diego. I couldn't cross the border. You had to move things around because of COVID and the lockdowns. And so in many ways, our lives were disrupted. But okay, maybe we can manage friendship and we can manage some part of family. But what about those people that they're not going to recover their business? They're not going to open their shop up again. Their capital destroyed. Maybe they had to vacate their establishment and just leave it all behind.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think that's certainly something that we had discussed, was the shifts in preference, the long-term effects, right? So we're not even talking about businesses losing money, going out of business, or families not seeing each other for an extended period of time. We're talking about now that consumers have been essentially in a under stay-at-home orders for now 7 months, broadly across the country, and also additional regulations in Mexico. That there's people who maybe perhaps were going out once or twice a week, who are making certain types of spending decisions, different things that they enjoy doing, will no longer be doing those things. They've just simply have this is permanently shifted, and also there could be some short-term shifts in behavior and preferences, but that's going to change the relationship that we have here. And I would stress too that what we have is something is extraordinary, unique in the world, that the ability, and we have the world's largest, busiest land crossing at San Isidro. We lose that. And I think too, there's the effect on politics as well, to think about when people know others that aren't like them. There is a broader acceptance. There's a broader appreciation for what that does and what that brings in the broader world, right? So if I know somebody who is of a different religion, or is from a different place, I learn on a human level about what that is. I don't subjugate my what that is to a political party or to another authority or a media site. It is me making those determinations, and so we have these extraordinary relationships, right? And it's not just Chicanos and Mexicanos. It's all I would say Americans and all residents in Baja that get to know each other and learn more about the world because we share a border, right? And not every border is like ours, where we have, yes, it's walled, but we also have a really a strong emphasis prior to COVID on movement of goods, making $1 billion improvements on how we get people back and forth on both sides. And I just don't want to lose that, right? And we can't allow a press release from federal authorities or Mexican authorities saying, "Oh, lockdown extended for another 2 more months," and stay put. Yeah, and you can't run a business that way. And again, to these other effects as well, that I just worry about it. I don't think our political situation gets better with a longer lockdown. By that I mean between Americans and Mexicans. I don't think cooperation and relationships get better the longer that we're told to stay put and not cross the border. And the effect again of people who are doing that, right, and are in line for 6 hours, and that's just it's unacceptable, and there just has to be somebody who speaks out on a higher level too, right? So our op-ed and this continuing conversation it's more credible when we have two voices from two places saying, agreeing to the same thing, right? For there's synergy there, but we also have different perspectives, and we see that they align well.
Yeah.
And we're not the only ones. That's the other part too. We author this op-ed on the importance of lifting the border to non-essential trips, because we know and we believe in the ability for businesses today to manage risk, for us to make investments about safety, and I think if we had the border open to non-essential trips, you would see on both sides a stronger emphasis on wearing masks, on workers to show up and checking temperatures. I don't know, since I haven't been to Baja since the lockdown, I don't know if the experience is like how it is here, where somebody checks your temperature before you enter into the restaurant, or you sit out in the patio, where there's a very strict sanitation protocol, where if there's an outbreak that businesses immediately notify customer.
There's many places that have that, maybe not all. And I want to take that point further, because it's changed over time. I mean, this thing has been so long. This madness has been running for so many months that, for instance, last time I went to Tijuana's airport to pick up somebody. It was kind of normal. It was better. It was, it was packed. The airport parking lot. There were a lot of flights coming in, coming out. It was kind of okay about a month ago, but I took a trip to Sonora. I flew from Tijuana to Sonora about 3 months ago, something like that. And as I went, I took a bus ride, then a taxi cab to the airport. Just going from the bus station to the airport, it was sad. It was like ghost town, Alta Mesa, which is pretty crazy, pretty. It's madness with the traffic, and there's also the border crossing at Otay. It was ghost town. It was so creepy. It was actually scary. There were no cars on the road. There were no cars waiting at the traffic stops. there was no activity, no open businesses. It was really, I think, scary. I mean it. So things have moved on. People are willingly keeping up with regulations because they don't want to lose their livelihoods and they don't want to lose their business. And they also, people genuinely, authentically, they want to protect their customers and their employees. So they're doing their part. But that doesn't mean that the hit's not going to come, because you mentioned that we have the busiest border crossing in the world, and that's San Isidro and Tijuana and San Diego. But to open up the context, between Baja California and California, we have 5 border crossings, and we have flights, international flights between our airports, and we have also maritime seaports. And for instance, if you are in Long Beach, California, or you're in San Diego, maybe Coronado, you can even kayak back to Mexico, or you can take your boat, or you can sail to Mexico or back to the US by sea. So we have an amazing array of communications, of different kinds of transportation or means of transportation. And we need those because those are businesses for us and for you. So we have people that work in the docks, in the restaurants, in the hotels, in the cruises, and the fishing boat trips, and all the people that cross the border, maybe just to go to the dentist or get a medical checkup, or just, I don't know, go to Tijuana and drink a beer, an amazing craft beer. Or we do the same. We travel to San Diego, and maybe, I don't know, people just any given day, they're going to cross the US-Mexico border. They're going to drive to Alpine and fill a couple growlers, and they're going to drive back to Mexico and drink it. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, we're not one and the same, but we're pretty close. And that doesn't happen at every part of the world. That doesn't happen that you have your grandpa living in Calexico and you have your parents living in Mexicali. So they need to cross the border to take care of their own parents, their elder parents. So you get stuck between maybe not even able to cross for shopping, but you also weren't able to cross to take medicines to your parents, or to check up on grandpa and grandma, for whatever reason that's necessary, even to open a bank account or do your banking, or I don't know. I mean, many people depend on U.S. businesses even to shop their underwear, because there's a lot of shopping opportunities in California, and there's not so many shopping opportunities in Mexico. So I don't know. It's pretty dynamic region. I mean, it's I don't recall how many border crossings that's a year, but it's
millions.
It's, yes, that's even in the hundreds of millions crossings.
Yeah, it's really unique too, because I think a lot of your major border communities in the world, there is very tangible animosity in and it is not a shared border. It is a border that too often prevents two nations that don't have a good history together, that in the ignorance or the hatred or essentially bad blood between two nations is something that just is too palpable. Like it's just something where, you know, it's not a good relationship on both sides. That it's not a healthy relationship. And I think, you know, the history obviously of our two countries, it goes back centuries, but I don't think that history necessarily is present in the minds of those who cross it. I think we live in a world where there's globalized pop culture, and I think that has really united us. I think that we, people can learn more about the United States, and if you're not here, from the incredible amount of, obviously, like, shows and movies and just the internet, be able to find more about us, and I would say similarly too with Mexico. Obviously, there's a language barrier between both countries, and I think that's also the another aspect of this too, right? I mean, that's otherwise maybe in other parts of the world, two border communities that don't have much language commonalities, or they're not speaking the same language, or it's like a taboo thing, or it's always something more, right? And I just point to, like, the Middle East. I point to places in Europe. They have just very strong national religious identities, and this is us. That's them on that other side. We are not them. And I don't think, to go back to how we got to know each other. I mean, what united us was craft beer, and
Right.
craft beer culture is global, and I've met craft beer aficionados around the world, and I found all of them to be just, like, laid back, fun, thoughtful, smart, articulate, and people who just really enjoy a great drink and great conversations, and there's an openness, and I've never seen it otherwise. So I think that was just something too that we miss, right? We miss the ability to see what we do have in common. And I think that's just, like, again, speaking out, somebody has to speak out, and that voice, that message is stronger when we do it together, when it's unified. And I think it's just so important.
And it's also pretty human. I mean, it's pretty amazing how not only we can talk about numbers and aggregates and statistics, but it's the deeper human experience that bonds us together. I mean, we could really talk about some topics all day long, like history and the differences between the U.S. and Mexico and the wars in that. We could also talk about how a guy from Maine or Wisconsin and a guy from central and southern Mexico, they're not gonna get along at all. They're not gonna understand each other. But we also have this very, very significant regional differences between what goes on between California and Arizona, between Sonora and Arizona, Baja and California, maybe, I don't know, Texas and Monterey. So even within Mexico and even within the US, there's huge regional differences. And we can get along pretty nicely a lot of the time, or most of the time. And but part of that, I just want to point out very quickly, part of that is taught, it's instructed, at least on the Mexican part, in school. Those differences are really pushed since elementary school, since your history lessons. We Mexicans have had a lot of foreign enemies, and we've been invaded for a lot of people, and we're the good guys, but we're weak, and we're sorry, and we're pathetic. That's what we're taught. But in real life, there's this huge cognitive dissonance, because Mexicans do really love the US. They might not have the guts to say it, but they show it. They act upon it. And it's like, I mean, all my life, I've been to the US. As a baby, I had my border crossing card. As a baby, I've had an American visa for all my life. That's like, yeah, let's go do some grocery shopping. Or let's go buy some socks. But I don't know. I've met rich people from Mexico City, from Guadalajara, from Monterrey, but maybe not Monterrey, but they're like, yeah, my trip to the US, and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and I've been saving a year for visiting Disney. And they're like, yeah, I mean, we our Mexican school takes us to Disney every single year. It's like, yeah, we do that all the time. I mean, so there's huge differences, and there's different ways to view it. But actually, we do have a lot of love for the US and for its people. And we might complain about the government and this politician and this law and migration stuff, but we have a lot of friends and family all over the country. I mean, I'm just a guy in one single town in Mexico, and I had their direct family, like blood family, not only California, but also Arizona, and they're in Charleston, and sometimes they live, I don't know. So it's proactive to say, oh, mi tía from Charleston said, my aunt living all the way closer to the east side. And it's like, yeah, it's pretty normal. I mean, you name it, Chicago, New York. We have friends there, we have family there, and maybe a second cousin living over there. And that's just part of life. And I think that's pretty human for us to live that way, to act upon it. I guess we just resist to changing the discourse, to changing the narrative and say, oh yeah, those gringos and stuff. But actually, we do love it over there.
Yeah, and I would say too, in the greatest American tradition, we some of us more than others, and really embrace the history as a nation of immigrants, as what we say melting pot, as that over time that the distinctions and of each nationality and ethnicity converge into an Americanness. And so I would say for us, our love affair with Mexico, I could say as a kid, it was a really big deal when the American media said that American sales of salsa were beat ketchup. Like that was this like big deal. That was this deal. Like people aren't going to learn Spanish. People aren't going to go to Mexico. They're not going to obtain Mexican nationality. But like consumer purchases really identify, something, an acceptance and an embracing of something different, many times of what they didn't grow up with. And yes, in the greatest American tradition, our salsa, what is sold as salsa, is not what I find, obviously, in Baja. And we are actually finding, though I would say, it's different now. There's because there's so many more people who will go to Mexico, cross the border, and say like, I want that at my store. I mean,
I've seen it. And that brings me back to craft beer, because maybe that didn't break news in Mexico, the salsa thing. But I recall reading one book by Garrett Oliver, the brewmaster from Brooklyn Brewery in New York City. And I guess he starts the book with saying that the American palate is coming back, that they're opening up for new cuisines and new culture and new flavors, but also new elements. And that actually it was salsa that with ketchup, and even the American diet is changing. But I also guess more than the diet is changing is that the places they're traveling to, the languages they're learning, I don't know, the new friends they're making. And I've seen the change in Mexico, how many more Americans get to travel here. How many businesses, restaurants, hotels that do depend on American tourism. And there's all sorts of kind of travels. It's not just the rich guys it's the regular people driving a few hours south, crossing. Maybe they're going to the beach in Rocky Point, maybe they're going surfing at some point in Sonata or doing wine tasting. It's just people doing people stuff, just enjoying nice things, maybe cheaper things, but nice things, and just being friendly, being lovely. I don't know, making human connections and bringing business, because business is a part of that human interaction. And so we're happy to provide the products and the services to our visitors, but we also love to do the same. I mean, we do travel a lot throughout California and some people throughout the US.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I would say too, one of the other first experiences that I remember, there's a lot of Americans, especially those who want to go to college, will take 4 years of a foreign language in high school. So from like 14 to 18, many of our students, I would say probably the majority of those that are taking a foreign language are probably taking Spanish. But that is in our relationship, and then a lot of the Mexican, social media and just different like memes and just like culture, right? These cultural products, like timely cultural products. You learn how people actually speak and interact and the experience. And so those 4 years really puts you at a disadvantage because there's no cultural context. Your teacher might be somebody who grew up in Mexico. They don't live there now. They're citizens of the US and they're probably older, probably like in their 50s, like 40s. So they're not, the younger generation. They themselves are not connected as well to Mexico. They could be from Spain. I had a Cuban teacher for 1 year, and that learning that accent and trying to understand Spanish, that was like a total curveball. Like we grew up, if you do learn Spanish in American high schools, especially like I'm Californian from California, it's mostly like the norteño accent. That's generally what we're learning. So the Cuban accent was just like, this is Spanish? Like that was just total curveball. Spain Spanish is obviously different as well, but like all to say, our where we start as two countries is just that. It's just a starting place. It's not a place of understanding, of commonality, of synergies, of partnership, and that's what this is about, right? I mean, this is sort of the irreplaceable importance of relationship building and simply talking and listening. And we don't have that doesn't happen in the environment where we're living today. And when it does, it's not as widespread, right? So I remember, especially like 10 years ago, and a lot of Americans, we're at a disadvantage because it's a little bit different now, but the news we were getting from Baja, from Mexico, were, there's very few Spanish speaking or English speaking media sources in Baja, in Mexico, exporting out news, right? And like, I want to learn about more about Morena and AMLO and like what he's doing, and I have to work on my fluency, but I'm reading articles only in Spanish. We're not really getting, that's changed a little bit more, right? But but the American media will instead tell you what is happening in Mexico, and I think that has been unfortunate historically, because obviously, what is it that Americans are going to read? What are the clicks going to come from? So as it does anywhere, things that are sensational, things that are generally bad, things that are things that reinforce your stereotypes about that place, right?
One of the biggest takeaways that I had so far from my friendship with you is exactly that notion that realization that we're doing a poor job to talk to you guys, to translate our world and our news and our politics to our neighbors, to our northern neighbors. And this is this is a big part, Vince, and I'm going to say in the camera, that why I'm launching this initiative, why I'm doing this, because I want people, if we're lucky enough, people from Argentina all the way to Canada, of course, in Alaska, to hear a different perspective. We're going to be producing both Spanish and English contents because we really want to translate what's going on and open up the debate and the discussion of ideas. Because I heard that, for instance, I recently wrote a piece. It's going to be published by a Guatemalan university. And it's inspired in that same thought that you expressed, that we are doing a poor job talking to our American friends and neighbors, but we're also doing a lousy job, an awful job, Mexicans, to talking and listening to our Central and South American friends. And that translates particularly harsh to our terrible relationship with Guatemala, because we're pretty bad neighbor to Guatemala. You name it. Crime, drugs, migration. Guatemalans across over to the U.S. by Mexico, they do suffer a lot. They get robbed, they get raped, they get killed, they get kidnapped, blackmailed, and I hope in a really small way that by doing this kind of talks with Spanish and English, we're gonna begin to look and listen to what's going on beyond our small little pathetic worlds. Yes, we have a nice life because we're close to California, but what about the guys in the South that they don't have it as good as us? So I want to commend you with that. That's one of the benefits of being your friend, and you're a big part of me having the guts to launch this initiative and just having conversations, putting them out, and hope they get well received. So thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Rodrigo, and I appreciate your friendship and continuous engagement, especially because I'm not where I want to be with my Spanish fluency, right? Like, I'm Chicano, and to be totally fluent is, for me at this point in my age, is almost like homework that just never got turned in. Like it's something that I'm supposed to do. I know I'm supposed to do it. I want to do it. It's just hasn't been done yet. I would say, but if you ask me why I want to be fluent, it is to understand the Mexican experience, to understand how Mexicans think, how the whole Spanish speaking world, what is that experience like? What are people, I just feel like there is a better appreciation as to who I am, and just a better world that we can create simply with conversations. Right. And I think that's kind of like where, how we started, and just simply over like a beer and like friends of friends, and just like openness to, I would say San Diegans are very much like that. If you met a San Diego, they're like, oh yeah, and let's go get a beer, and I invited my roommate, or I invited my best friend, like they'll be there. And I would say, like, every time I went to like Mexicali or Tijuana, it'd be like, oh yeah, have you met my friend so-and-so? Or like, my sister's here, like, and then I'm like, okay, then we got each other on Facebook. And then like slowly over time, like you just meet people just organically. And again, I'll also say that the importance of just how irreplaceable and the importance of relationships and open borders. We can't even get to the point of understanding each other. I mean, like, the internet's only going to show you so much, right? Like, Google Earth can show I can zoom onto like your streets and like look around, but there's no context. There's no context to that. That's a car driving at 20 miles an hour, driving by, whatever happens to be there at that time of day, I'm going to capture. That's not there's no contact. There's no additional perspective learned from that. And I think that for me, it's wanting to get to that point. So like your friendship to me is just really important. And like, I would say too, what I see in you is especially a really common American thread that is just entrepreneurism, just the dynamic entrepreneur energy and where that takes you in the power of ideas, and just continuously working on like projects and self-improvement and doing like 1,000 things at once. And I think that's very much like sort of the American ethos, our work sort of, we're not all like that, but we are raised and we exalt people who do that, right? So Silicon Valley, the tech sector, Jeff Bezos and Jobs and Gates and all these people, right, who created something that wasn't there before, and they didn't simply rise through the ranks to become take over their dad's job, or they didn't rise through the ranks to go from small government position to high government position, right? Like they created something, right? And they followed and they built something around ideas. And where that takes us is extraordinary and wonderful. And I think that's something too, like most, and again, this is in the United States as well, but there's no pressure. There's nobody telling you, nobody behind Rodrigo telling Rodrigo, you really need to create this next thing. You really should like take all this risk and like take all this time and like do this next thing. Like that's on like that's your choice. And I think again, like that's very, very American of you, Rodrigo,
I've never broken a bone. I've never had a fracture in my body, but goddamn, I've fallen and I've broken some inside bones because of trying business and trying new ventures and taking a lot of risks and getting hit by life and by business. So maybe I should have started this channel at least 2 years ago. That was the plan, but I don't know. I chose a different path and I postponed it. So that's why I call upon my friends like you to get it going, to say, okay, screw it, just keep going, let's do it, have fun, make it fun for other people, and try to spread a good message and keep your entrepreneurial spirit going. And I want to talk a bit more both about language and beer, because they're pretty fun and funny subjects. I recall when I was an exchange student in Sowell, in Korea, back in 2004, a long time ago, goddamn, I'm old. And there was this guy, Jan Munoz from East LA. So he's a full-blown Chicano, kind of harsh background, like the legit stuff. And we're the only couple Mexicans in that school in Korea. Pretty nice college, private college, Yonsei University. But he's American. He doesn't have Mexican citizenship. He was born and raised in the US. And we're, I don't know, traveling with the other guys from 30 different countries and talking so many languages. And we're like, we have a small clique of Spanish-speaking guys. There's John, there's me, and there's also Fernando, a black guy from the Netherlands, a Dutch guy who spoke like amazing Spanish. And we have this small clique of weird dudes amongst, 400 foreign students. And we're trained by Boss. And Justin, who's actually also an American citizen, he's a guy from Burma or Myanmar. And we're like turning on the bus seats and like, dude, you have no idea. You better learn Spanish. You're missing all the jokes. Like it's so goddamn fun. And maybe it's not just because you're gonna get richer, get a better job. You might get those opportunities if you also speak fluent Spanish. But goddamn, I mean, even a lame Mexican is a funny Mexican. I mean, it's like I don't know how to say it. It's a country with a lot of problems and poverty and crime, but damn it, it's pretty funny. You can laugh at everything. And we could talk about language all day, but also let's take it to beer. I really don't remember which year was it, but I recall that we had a lot of Americans in 2013 when we hosted the first Mexicali Beer Fest, which was the second beer fest, but the previous one in 2012 was called Baja Beer Fest. Then we took over the franchise and we opened up the Mexicali Beer Fest. And we had a lot of friends and visitors, but also bloggers from LA County. And I don't recall if you were here that time, along with the guys from LA. But I remember you with Gonzalo Quintero, our friend from San Diego. How was it that, do you recall how we got to know each other?
So that was in 2014 with Agro Baja and the big agricultural expo every year in Mexicali. And I've done craft beer industry research in San Diego for like 9 years or 8 years. And Gonzalo was going to make a presentation on craft beer at Agro Baja. And he's like, I know we just met. I mean, I didn't know him well, but it's like, we just met. He's like, yeah, like, do you want to come? Like, this is, I could really use, like, I'll speak to this part. I could really use a guy who talks about like the data and the economic impact. And I'm like, totally. Yeah, absolutely. So it was sort of like a team effort, the presentation. And so that was like, the how we first met and connected. And I also remember Agro Baja because I've never seen anything like that. I mean, that was just extraordinary. And I think too many Americans think like Tijuana is like, must be the capital of Baja, and they don't know that. And they might know El Centro, but they haven't been there. And what's on the other side of the border must be probably pretty much like El Centro. And it's obviously not. It's extraordinary, large metropolitan capital. And it's also like a hub of agricultural business and opportunity. Right. And in addition to obviously the maquiladoras and the breweries and everything else, but like, so that was really cool because I just like, wow, we have our county fairs in California and across the country, our state fairs. That's like your one time out of the year. You'll have, what was traditionally like an ag event where the farmers come and then they sell their product, the produce, or they sell livestock. But in today's world, it's you have very little of that. Most of the agriculture is very commercialized. And so at the county fair, it's mostly rides, it's junk food. There's a couple of contests. Yes, there is still some agriculture to it, but it's not like, it's not the reason you go. You go because there's like rides and it's hot and it's the summer, you have kids and you go, and this is the thing we do. We go on rides at the fair and we get junk food after, and maybe you get to ride a horse or something. And so like I going to your event, I was like, whoa, this is massive. And then also learning too, like just seeing like for Americans, that's also really different as well. Most of the Mexicans that we meet, or you encounter, or you see, or you think is a Mexican or somebody from Latin America, are people who are traditionally in working in landscaping, people who are working at hotels, people who are working in in some sort of like a labor construction or at homes. And so, and they predominantly speak mostly Spanish. And so you don't get to see the full picture. And that's only for one state, right? So that's the other part of it as well. Like I have never been to, like, my grandfather was from Oaxaca. So I've never been to Oaxaca. There's totally other states with totally other different experiences, but the Mexicali and the Baja experience, there's so much more in addition to Tijuana, obviously, that like would not have been able to experience had I not been like a beer guy in San Diego and got an invitation to go, and somebody's going to drive. I'm like, sure, I'm not driving 2.5 hours. You can? Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Like, you know, and yeah, I didn't get paid or anything, but I'm like,
well, I'm happy to say that even now, in Oaxaca, there's craft beer. So
nice.
I guess we've been doing our job for the last 10 years. I have always tried to give credit to our friends and our influences in San Diego, because I'm pretty sure that without San Diego and without California, there wouldn't be nice beers in Mexico. We wouldn't. We would have been inspired and moved to start this craft beer revolution a few years ago, and which in turn, when we began to pour out nice enough beers and send them to other parts of Mexico, they went like, okay, these dudes from the north, they're doing like nice stuff, and it all comes from the guys. I mean, you can name a lot. You can name names, and you can say Stone Brewing and Iron Fist, and you can say Green Flash, and we've been so blessed to be friends with many of those guys in the industry, but also be professionally inspired and even taught, because they've been teaching us and they've been giving lessons to us in seminars and talks and lectures, and some of the best friends I've developed during the last years are the beer stuff, the beer friends, and you're definitely one of them. You're on top. And I mean, I've even spent a New Year's Eve party in San Diego at a Stone facility. It's an amazing party, and that's part of like, hey, what are you gonna do this for this Christmas, or what are you gonna do for this New Year's Eve? So it's like, yeah, let's go to the beer party in San Diego. Let's hit it, man. Let's do it. And it's awesome. I don't know. I mean, that was 2014. That means we've had about 6 or 7 beer fests since then. We opened up a bar. You brought over friends to our bar, a few patients in Mexicali. I don't recall if we've ever met in Tijuana when I've been there, but I mean, it's like, hey, dude, what are you gonna do this weekend? Are you hitting Tijuana? Because I'm going to Tijuana. And I'm the one who says, oh, I can't go because I have a job. And you're like, hey, I'm taking some American friends to Ensenada for a wine trip. Where should I go? And they're like, okay, you guys might want to check this out, and you guys want to drink this kind of beer and stuff. So it's not just that we talk about serious political, economical stuff. It's like, hey, I'm looking for a hotel. I mean, just give you a heads up. And it's fun. I mean, it's part of what real friendship is about. And I'm pretty eager to go back to that, to be able to cross the border, to go grab a beer, attend your wedding, or some kind of party that you're going to do, I don't know, later this year or next year. And I don't know, whatever closing remarks you wanna say, I'll be happy, and I'm sure we can have many more of these talks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I would say, I'm just from us chatting about it now, I had a thought as to why craft beer people I see this continuous thread about, again, like friendliness, openness, conversational. And I think part of it has to do with when you enjoy something, that experience is different no matter what it is. But with sports, people who are like sports fanatics, you're all watching the game. Yeah. So you're not facing each other. You may be doing the sport yourself. In that case, you're competing, but most people, right? They're not doing sports. They're fans. And so you're all watching television. You're reacting all at the same time to the same thing. There's no dialogue, no discussion. This is sort of like watching a movie, right? Or people who like anime or something. I mean, that's awesome. You can talk about how awesome that was, but there's no conversation or interaction when you are enjoying it. And I think for beer, it's something where craft beer itself is unique. You're drawn to. It's a local product. It's always something different you're going to find. Like somebody told me, like the joy of discovery is like what like data geeks really like. So like discovering whether this is like an awesome beer or how they do it differently here, right? Like and sometimes you're disappointed. Other times, like you're really excited. Other times too, like we also are reflecting back on what we see elsewhere. And I thought, like, for when I went to Baja, every time I go, I was really surprised to see, I mean, the stone gargoyles everywhere. Like I mean, it's the logos and the brands are just everywhere, and you see it. And then I meet like brewers from Baja, and while there's a total understanding and there's relationships, like we're going to do this our way. Like I'm not trying to make a copycat. We say copycat. I'm not trying to replicate the American beer. But I'm taking that knowledge and that experience to do it our way, to do it my way. And with that, I mean, that's this common sort of craft brewer mentality. Sometimes it's like mad scientists. You just throw things together, you see what happens. Other times it's like practice and really trying to improve your craft. And other times too, it's just trying to experiment with different types of traditions and different types of styles and using the ingredients you have, right? So that's the other part too. I was really expecting, like, if it's Baja, like San Diego, everybody wants to be San Diegan, and these are going to be all hoppy beers. I'm like, no, actually, like American hops are like really, well, hard to get a hold of, really expensive, not really economical, and even the barley. I remember, I mean, that's the other part of it too. I mean, like, yeah, we'll source from like Argentina. It doesn't have to be from the United States. It can be from other places, and that'll give it like a totally different flavor, and that's awesome. Like, you know, we're all better sitting down and having a beer and just talking about learning from each other and talking about you know, things that about the world, and that conversation can be something different every time. And so I'll leave you with that I mean, you know, I'm sure the next time we chat, there'll be an additional dimension to what we've already discussed and like different topics that we can chat about. But this platform is just a great way to, especially during the pandemic, for us to continue to have those human interactions and conversations that are just like fun and just really enjoyable at the end of the day.
I'm so happy, Vince. I mean, it's been only an hour, but I've had a lot of emotions stirred and a lot of memories coming back. I just want to close with to whoever watches this, that one or some of my happiest memories have been brewing beer in San Diego, and have been brewing beer in Mexico in my own brewery with friends coming over from San Diego. I mean, there's some things that I'm gonna forget. I mean, for real. But there's these kind of things that are highlights in my life, and this new this is a chance to open up my world and make new friends and discover new industries, and the inspiration and the motivation and the love for the people and the love for the craft and love for the beer. It's something that I don't know. I wouldn't. It will be so sad if I hadn't done it. It will be a huge waste of my life if I had not experienced it. And I'm happy to say that you're a big part of it. Thanks a lot, Vince. I'm happy to keep watching your dog on Instagram.
Right.
And your nice pics with your beautiful fiance. I'm so happy for you guys.
Thanks, man.
And let's put a date for the next one. And thanks a lot, man. A lot of love for you.
Yeah, you too, man. And happy to see this project grow and thrive. And I think it's needed now more than ever. And it's not going to come from corporate media or from a large organization. It would come from just this, from people connecting and seeing a need. And I'm happy that like you're the guy who's taking this on. So cheers. And next time maybe we'll do this over a beer, because I think that's like the one thing that's missing.
Awesome.
Where's my beer? I don't have it.
Yeah.
We'll wait till the second time we chat to have a beer.
Fantastic. Let's do that. So muchas gracias, carnal. Te mando un abrazo. Y nos vemos muy pronto. Muchas gracias, Vince.
That's awesome, man. Great seeing you. And cheers. Let's do this again soon. And let's connect again soon.
Awesome. Thank you.